Hey everybody, it's Clint, and welcome to another edition of the Limelight Diary. Bling! So today I'm going to start telling you guys about my Lyme story, starting with the moment of infection and walking you through the first stages of my symptoms and the years leading up to correct diagnosis. So let me set the stage for you a little bit. It's summertime in Austin, Texas. The year is 1988, and I am 1 year old. So myself, along with my family, we were out at Lake Travis at a lake house, and we were four-wheeling out and about all day and just playing around. And by the end of the day, my mom started noticing that myself, my siblings, and herself had ticks all over us. Also, my father's parents were there, and they were bitten as well. So we all had ticks on us, and my mom, she could tell you more in depth the details of finding the ticks and how long she was pulling ticks off of us. You can look for that in her video coming up. She's going to be telling her story as well. But as I understand it, because I was only one at the time, so I only have, what I'm told, that there were hundreds of ticks that were found on all of us together, and that she was pulling ticks off of us. I was one, so she said I had ticks coming out of my diapers for days. So I got bit, my brothers got bit, my sister got bit, my mom got bit, and both of my dad's parents got bit. We immediately started showing the flu-like symptoms, and I had multiple bullseye rashes. I can't really speak for all of the rest of my family just because I wasn't old enough to quite know that yet, and you can find more about that in my mom's video, like I said, but also I'm just going to talk about myself, really. So I had multiple bullseye rashes and started to get the flu-like symptoms. And my mother took us to an infectious disease doctor here in Austin, and he said that it was nothing that he didn't know it was wrong. And but my mother knew that something was wrong, so she went into detective mode, and she went, I guess at that time, the library, because Google wasn't around, and she pulled out some medical books, and she found the picture of the bullseye rash in a medical journal, and she took it back to the same doctor, and in that book it said to do 2 weeks worth of antibiotics. That was the protocol for that time, which we now know is not a correct treatment for Lyme disease. That you have to treat it for longer than the life cycle of the bacteria. So, and even today, that is still up. People still debate on how long that is, but I won't go into that. All we know is that we did 2 weeks, and that obviously wasn't enough. So we go on our lives and don't think about it anymore. We think that we're done. And we, at that time, couldn't even think that, it could really turn into anything else. So, skip ahead a couple years to when I'm in first grade. And, let me go back. I was a very healthy baby for the most part. For my first year of life, I had colic, but besides that, I was a very healthy, sturdy, strong baby. So I started out with a pretty good immune system, and so now jumping to when I was in first grade, and I had to have my appendix taken out. And after that happened, I gained a bunch of weight. Within months, my joints started hurting. which isn't normal for a first grader. My energy level plummeted, and I started having pain in the bottom of my feet. At that time, I couldn't, put into words what it was, uh, but I couldn't wear shoes all of a sudden. I just could not wear shoes. My mom would buy me shoes. We would try different sizes. We would do everything, and I would wear them for about a day, and then I would stop wearing shoes. I just could not wear shoes. And also around the same time, I started developing kind of a sensory disorder. Could only wear things that were soft, and things felt prickly, and I just was always uncomfortable with things touching me, and we didn't know what was going on. And now knowing that anesthesia is like superfood for bacteria, and also can kind of halt your immune system in fighting disease, and so or any illness. And so at that time, we believed that my Lyme was activated. So just had this rush of symptoms come out of nowhere, and we just thought it was that my body was just changing. All the meanwhile, my mom around the same time had to have back surgery, and she had gone through a couple of back injuries, which started hers, which again she can cover in her video more in depth. But it's imperative to know that hers became active as well, and that we were both having a lot of issues. So, as the years went on, I just kept getting sicker and sicker. My symptoms, especially joints, nerve, even in elementary school, I remember my memory not being as good because I'm a performer. I sing, I act, and so I'm doing these shows, and I just could not remember lines, lyrics to songs, staging, what we did at rehearsal the day before. I couldn't remember, schoolwork or, all that kind of stuff. So my memory was not so good, but I didn't really have much to compare it to. Whereas at this stage, my mother knew that her life was completely different from before the tick bite to now. So that's kind of has been the anchor for we know something is not right since the bite. And I used to, when I was performing, I performed and you do these shows, and right before you open a show where there's a big, event or anything, you kind of have increased stress, and you have you don't sleep as much, and you're at rehearsals for long hours, and you're exhausted physically, and I would always get sick without fail right before a show because of this added stress on my body and my immune system. And so because of that, then I would go to my allergist thinking that I was just getting sick because of Austin allergies, which are horrible. And I would get a long-term and a short-term cortisone shot just to get me through the show and better so that I could perform. And I would do that, 3 or 4 times a year. So I was just injecting steroids left and right to keep myself healthy just to be able to perform. And now we also know that steroids, cortisone has the same effect on the body for Lyme patients as the anesthesia. So what activated my Lyme in my body, I was then feeding the Lyme every time that I was getting a long-term and short-term cortisone shot. And so without knowing it, I was just making myself sicker and sicker and sicker. And all the symptoms worsened, and by this, now I'm talking, and if we are on a timeline now, maybe I'm in middle school, and this is where my sleeping problems really started to get bad. I just would not sleep. I could not get to sleep. And if I got to sleep, then I'd be waking up. And then if I woke up, then I couldn't go back to sleep. So then you're exhausted all over again, and your immune system doesn't work well. And so it was just a vicious cycle of staying sick all the time. And I had this story about a friend named Cassie in elementary school. This was how we met. We became very good friends later on, but this is how we first met, or how she met me, really, I should say. I had a long rehearsal the night before, and I came to school and I wasn't feeling well, so I went to the nurse, and she was kind of used to this, and we just thought, oh, I'm out working and performing, and I just need to rest. So I'd always go to the nurse and take naps in elementary school because I was just so exhausted. And so my friend Cassie came to the nurse one day, and she was very ill that day, but the nurse turned her away because I was taking the bed. And at the time, it came across, oh, he's such a diva. He's, skipping class to go have a nap. But now we know that really I had Lyme disease, and the fatigue was just so crushing, and for elementary school that wasn't normal. And that's how Cassie and I met. And at the time it was kind of, oh, must be so spoiled that the nurse just lets him come have a nap. But once I got a diagnosis later on in life, we found out what was actually going on. So it's kind of funny going back. I mean, it's not funny, but putting together all these things that happened that you thought were one thing, but really was totally the Lyme that was taking over my life. So now, say I'm in middle school, and the sleep has gotten really bad, and I think I got put on sleeping pills by the time I was in 6th grade. I was always medicated because I was always sick. And the pattern of getting sick and taking these cortisone shots multiple times a year was just going on. And I was playing football, and I was dancing in shows, and I just had the worst knees and my ankles and hips and back and everything, and that's just not normal for a kid. And and I just never had energy to go play. I'm like, I love to play and have fun, and I lived behind a park, but I just didn't have the energy to play with other kids. So that just wasn't normal. Let's go to when in high school, it just kept worsening, and my pain meds and my sleep meds increased because that got worse. My joints just kept getting worse. My neuropathy. I could only bear to wear a t-shirt and like gym shorts and flip-flops because that's all that my nerves could take. Anything else would just drive me crazy, and it would hurt. So then I moved to New York right after high school when I was 18, 2006. And, it was my college years, and so I didn't have the healthiest of lifestyles, and partied a lot, and that was hard on my immune system as well. And so that is when my Lyme really started, because of my abuse on my body, that it really started to take over. And by the time 2009 hit, I was in bed majority of the day, and that's when I moved to LA after New York. And by that time, I was spending the majority of my time in bed and on the couch. And then I came home because I needed to kind of reprioritize life. I was partying way too much. I wasn't, going after my goals anymore. So there was a lot of that going on. So I moved back home, and at the same time, my mom's Lyme had reached a point where she was in bed all the time as well, and we both just had zero energy. The fatigue was just so crushing. we were in so much pain, and we had no answers. How I can't count how many doctors over the years throughout my life that I've seen, and they have no idea what's going on, and they think that I'm just crazy, and they just tell me to go see a psychiatrist. And what do I do when I go to the psychiatrist? They say I'm crazy, and then they put me on, Seroquel, and then I became a zombie, and that's not good either. So my mom went in. She was having some troubles with her heart, and that were unexplained. She wasn't having a heart attack. It was just racing so much. And so it was while she was in the hospital, and we found this lady in town who was like a health detective, and she ran all these tests because the doctors didn't know what was going on with my mother. And so whenever these tests came back, it said that she was positive for Lyme. And once she started reading into it, then we figured out that that's what was going on with me as well. And interesting that whenever the test came back positive for Lyme, the doctor actually wrote a note to my mom saying that she could not see her anymore. And we thought that was the weirdest thing, but then as we researched, we found out that really this isn't, that wasn't weird for people that are going through Lyme disease, that, doctors don't want to touch it, and if they've even heard of it. How many times have been told that Lyme doesn't even exist in Texas. So we've had this disease that was, harming us for, at that point, it was something like 22 or 23 years by the time we actually got diagnosed. And so that's kind of just a summary of the beginning of my life with Lyme, very quick. And so stay tuned for part 2, which is talking about my diagnosis and what my beginning journeys of learning about Lyme and all of that entailed. So thanks for listening, and stay tuned for part 2. And since we're here, I think I'm on day 25 of my new protocol, the Cowden protocol. And overall, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. I'll do a more in-depth diary entry on that on that tomorrow. But that's where I am right now. So thanks for watching. Subscribe, share, and thanks for watching the video. My phone's ringing. I gotta go. Bye.